Most times we're in a little conference room in your guys' office. We sincerely miss that. We hope to be back in person next year. But as you can tell, I serve for the association with 35 urban and rural transit systems in the state of Iowa, and pretty much all of them are on right now. That shows the commitment, the advocacy work that we continuously do. And when we're in person, we usually have at least 15 to 25 people coming out to speak to our congressional delegates as well as to you guys. So thank you for taking this time. Just want to highlight a couple of things. What we're really proud of in Iowa is serving and having public transit access in all 99 counties. With our rural systems, our urban systems working together under one association to really commit to the mission of serving our members here in the state of Iowa. With that, unfortunately, with the pandemic hitting here, as you've probably seen all over the nation, our systems had about 50 to 75% decrease in ridership. You look at our total numbers, we had about 20% overall decrease in ridership from the previous fiscal year that I attained. But with that, we would like to thank you. We thanked our congressional members last week. But we'd like to thank you, everyone on this call who's from Region 7, as well as Iowa DOT for your help in making sure we had CARES Act funding, CRISA funding, and the new funding coming out as well. I am going to actually turn this over to our president of Iowa Public Transit Association, Julia, just to talk a little bit about what those CARE funds and what all the COVID funds have been doing for our systems, what the pandemic has meant for their systems. Julia, would you like to just comment on a couple items?
Sure. I'm Julia Castillo. I'm the Executive Director of HERTA Public Transit, and I'm also the Iowa Public Transit Association President this year. And one of the things that we were really proud of in Iowa is once the pandemic hit, there was only one of all of our transit systems that really reduced services. The majority of the systems stayed as they were. They reduced very little, if any. We might have made some changes due to demand, but for the most part, continued serving the same people that needed to be served, getting people to work, especially healthcare workers. And, you know, dialysis and cancer treatments don't care and they don't stop due to a pandemic. So we really had to step it up in making sure that those people continued to get those life-sustaining services that they needed. A lot of the money went toward PPE. It went toward extra safety measures for our drivers. Most of the systems put in some type of driver barriers to try to keep them protected, because we were very aware that if our drivers went down and they caught COVID, then that was going to, you know, be detrimental to all of our systems. So we knew we had to take all the precautions to make sure they were safe. Bought a lot of disinfecting type equipment for the vehicles, and again, a lot of PPE that we passed out, as well as like masks that FTA made sure that they provided to us so that we could you know, hand out to our drivers, especially in those early days when nobody knew what we were doing, and it was very difficult to get supplies. So we really appreciated that. Other things that people have just stepped up to do is, you know, meal deliveries, door-to-door meal deliveries in the rural areas, bigger meal deliveries like to senior housing complexes and things like that in some of the rural areas and in some of the larger areas. You know, taking people to get the vaccination, taking people to get testing when we needed to do that. So we have just really stepped up and done what we needed to do. We saw ourselves as an essential service, and I think it was really transit's time to shine on what we could do. We pivoted really quickly when we knew that we had to, you know, the pandemic was actually a pandemic. And I'm just really proud of all of Iowa's transit systems and how well we've done in making sure that the people got the services they needed, that we took care of our drivers and our staff. And that wouldn't have been possible without, you know, the CARES and CRISA funding and this new round of funding that we will be getting. So greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Julia. And with that, even with the funding, I can just tell you, for the stories I've heard and talking with a lot of my rural systems, it was a lifeline. It truly was. It was a decision of being able to continue operations or not, especially with a complete drop off in ridership. And more importantly, as we're kind of seeing, and as you guys already know, this isn't something that is going to be just, by tomorrow, we're going to be back to our previous ridership numbers. The funding allowing that to extend over into other years is going to allow our systems to adapt and get some of our funding, ridership back, but allow some of that gap funding to help with our systems as well. A couple of things I just want to highlight, just a couple of successes that we've really had, and just one out of many that we've seen in the state is a lot of our systems have continued to really do public-private partnerships with workforce rides. We're seeing workforce partnerships increase more and more, and to help create sustainable, I would say, operational revenue for a lot of our systems, especially in our rural areas. We had one with our members with SWITA that really focused on being able to have a large employer like Menards have a distribution center and put into kind of an outside set of Council Bluffs, allowing that center to operate, knowing that really a lot of their own employees that they were going to hire did not have reliable transportation. And even in the small community they were going to be in, did not have the workforce pool they needed. And so it was really a great teamwork with our public transit system, really working with different communities to provide almost 3 shifts of employment trips back and forth to help this organization succeed. And truly, as we're highlighting to our legislators, anyone who will listen, public transit is truly an economic development tool that we have to really get out there and keep promoting. We'd also just like to highlight some of the innovative things going on in the state of Iowa, and that is really with our brand new electric buses that we've just got in with Des Moines DART, 7 new electric buses that have been added to their fleet. This is a pilot project that will serve in the greater Des Moines, and it was made possible through a partnership with Mid-American Energy Company, along with a low and no emissions grant application that they received. Very excited. They are now kind of studying this, seeing how it works with our kind of climate, the effectiveness of it, as well as hopefully the cost savings that they will see in the long run. But what are some of the issues that we're having here in Iowa? And as we know, as you constantly hear, it's always funding. And a lot of that is with us in Iowa. Our fleet is probably one of the oldest in the nation. Over 53% of our entire fleet is beyond its useful life. That equates to about $138 million if we were going to do a one-time fund to get that back up just a useful life on there. We also see only about 66% of our federal gas tax comes back to us in the state of Iowa in there. And then, of course, we are serving an older population here in the state of Iowa, more rural, very rural state, once you kind of get out certain a couple of metropolitan areas. And of course, our great winters that we can sometimes have, and it puts a toll on our bus and our bus fleet in managing. We did a survey a few years ago, and we found that 88% of our transit agencies are not only, of course, needing fleets, but storage from the elements that we just talked about. Expanding administrative offices. About 2/3 of our public transit systems need additional space for just the admin. 88% needed for some type of bus storage in there. So a huge facility need here in Iowa is still underway. I'm just going to highlight some of the things that we're going to talk to you guys about, and I'm going to turn it over to Ed, our federal legislative liaison, to kind of finish this up, and then kind of turn it over for some questions back and forth. But first of all, we just like to thank you. We have really, I think, done well under our grants, and a lot of help from direction from you guys as well. But we think Iowa has just an award-winning model that we hope and wish probably other states would adopt. And that is with our PTMS, our public transit management system, where we really focus on a high percentage of our bus fleet to focus on the mileage and age of our buses. So it kind of develops a score. The oldest ones with most mileage get replaced first. It really becomes a non-political issue, and it's a very fair and democratic way of, I believe, getting funds into the state and into each of our transit systems. So we really look forward to that. We think it's a great model. We hope that it continues. And we appreciate FTA. We've gone back at several years ago where we'd have to submit different applications and may have got a rural one funded or maybe not urban. But we've asked FTA to say, could we apply one application? And you guys have allowed us to do that. We believe that is a great model, a terrific model where we can then at the state level direct where those funds go, and whether kind of that medium-sized urban needs those buses, or we can fund a few more buses in the rural transit systems. We hope that FTA allows us to continue with that single application moving forward. I'm going to turn the rest over a little bit to Ed, just talk about some of the needs that we have here in the state of Iowa.
It's interesting to see as we've moved ahead over the last couple of years, and with the help of with the administration, the FTA working on getting rid of our older buses. We used to have a 66% beyond useful life. So we've gotten it down, but that's only because each year you've been able to help us by funding some of those older buses, getting them off of the roads. Our specific ask for FY22, when we heard we were supposed to go high, we came out with a number of $30 million for buses under 5339B account, which would allow us to again wipe off at least 30 million of that $138 million in bus needs. Then on the authorizing bill, we're going to be requesting $150 million for bus and bus facilities. That will allow us to replace not only the rest of our buses beyond useful life, but also at the same time, it will allow us to replace some of the facilities in the state that continue to be worked on. And then also, we're going to be asking for applying for a zero emission grant for rural bus transit systems. We have 4 systems that Iowa DOT is working with to put a grant application together to try and help jumpstart some of these companies to get them into the electric bus programs and checking out how it works in rural systems. And so we're hoping to work with the FTA on that particular grant to continue expanding, because we know the future, most people that are building the fuel engined buses are not going to be around making them. So we need to be looking at it now. And with your help, we hope to be able to at least try that in 4 of our regional areas. I think that's a request for 16 buses, Matt, somewhere in that neighborhood, that I think you'll see coming a grant application under the C program from the state DOT. We also strongly support the Biden-Harris administration infrastructure package program through the Bus Coalition. And I don't know whether, Administrator, you knew this or not, but the Iowa Public Transit Association basically helped start the Bus Coalition that now has 350 transit systems across the United States. They allowed me to work on that, and we've built that up to being able to identify at least 2.3 $1.65 billion that were returned to the bus and bus facilities programs since MAP 21 devastated bus transit systems capital programs across the country. So they've been very supportive of the work, and we've hopefully have been keeping your staff busy with the grants, because we also work very hard to get the grants program back in shape. We work a lot with the Congress on those. The level of funding that you'll see coming from the Bus Coalition is a request for replacing 15,000 large urban transit buses and about 14,700 small fleet buses, as well as the paratransit buses that are beyond a useful life. That's the number. And depending on whether you use a number for the large buses of about 600,000 replacement, or an electric bus, which is about 1.2 million, we decided to say, hey, when you make your infrastructure package, those are the number of buses that need to be replaced. Also, if we go back and add the 16,700 buses that went out from our high of over 75,000 buses, we're now down about 16,700 buses across the United States that have been taken off of the road. So we're saying you also should think about adding those number of buses in, so we can get the level of service back up again, so you don't see the drop in the number of people riding on buses. We've continued seeing cut in the number of transit riders, but we look at that is because of the cost, or the part of the reason is that we don't have the number of buses that we used to have on the road today. So those are some of the things that we have been working on to try and help identify ways that hopefully, and we've gotten this message over to Christopher on your staff to put in the numbers of what we thought from the 350 members of the Bus Coalition that we thought needed to be done to get the buses back where we are today.
Well, thank you very much for that overview. I don't know if there was another part of the presentation, or if we were at the end and we can jump in now. Again, my apologies for joining you all late, but this is certainly worth the conversation. Iowa is mighty. You guys are doing some amazing things. I really appreciate you sharing your movement into a zero emission space around bus transportation. I know that your request over the course of the years and the accommodation that the Federal Transit Administration has done prior to me joining has helped you all significantly. Now, I'm just curious because you do have the opportunity as you're looking at this bus fleet to start thinking about the bus fleet of the future. And I know you mentioned I presume it was a low-no grant that got you the 6 electric buses through DART. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, also Kristen's on here from Iowa DOT. Kristen, do you want to talk about that grant a little bit?
Sure. So we didn't apply for the DART one. DART did that on their own. But yeah, Iowa DOT is currently working with the 4 transit agencies, and I believe it's CalSTART, to put together the low-no grant for the 4 rural systems. I think it was a total of 14 buses, I think, that will be applied for through that, which is just a drop in the bucket, I think, of what we could potentially be doing in the future. But this will be a really great pilot to show what can happen in different areas of the state. We have a far northern region applying, and we have some central and southern Iowa that you wouldn't think Iowa, being as small as it is, would have climate changes, but from north to south, there are some differences in the terms of how severe the winter can be. So I think that'll be a good test of what the electric buses can do across the state for giving examples to other regions. So appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I said, small but mighty, because you're really leading the way. This is significant. Also, as you were discussing your fleet management plan and how you were going to be cycling off, that your expectation is that with current funding and future funding, you'll have that opportunity to replace buses that are well beyond their useful life. And that's important, because we know the longer those older buses stay around, the less contribution we can make towards climate and reducing the pollutants. Now, I don't know if the team was able to share some of the good news, but we have published the apportionment tables for the American Rescue Plan. So that's up. Both, I do believe that there's in total about 35 million that's going to be coming between the two areas. And I don't have the numbers and the breakdown in front of me right now, but all to say is, in addition to CARES Act and in addition to CRISA and what you've received so far, there's additional dollars that will be coming to Iowa. And the opportunity to take those dollars, look at that, they are 100% federal, and to apply those dollars to continue what you have been doing, which is to sustain the essential nature of this very critical service. This is public transportation service throughout the entire state. So every single one of your members, I know will be receiving an apportionment, the $30.5 billion that out of the 43 that came to USDOT was landed right at the Federal Transit Administration. 26.6 of that is going to be going to the formula program for rural and urban and tribal. There is additional dollars that will be allocated for different uses. One of them is $5 million for discretionary grants for tribal transit programs. So there is within the context of the funding that the total funding and then the apportionment that will be coming to Iowa, there will be opportunities to doing different things. But one of the things that as you're looking prospectively at infrastructure funding, that your ability to then review your needs, not only on the rolling stock, but then on the type of facility that needs to accommodate, whether it's existing type of technology or new technology, that this is the time to start having those conversations. What is it that we want to be? How do we want to move people? And if we're looking at to strike a balance between existing technology, new technology, or doing a full force conversion, then what does that do to everything from the facility where you're going to be holding and maintaining the rolling stock, but also the workforce training. And training is an element that will be part of that's part of the existing NOFO that is out for low and no emission, and that would be considered in the future, because we know that as technology advances, we also want to protect jobs, and that those jobs, the focus should be on upskilling and reskilling existing positions so that you can take full advantage of the investment that has been made in the maintenance and frontline and others who have been moving people all these years. So I'm really, really excited that you all have a plan, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. Like everything else, the last 13 months have been just really difficult for public transportation. And what has been the saving grace has, of course, been the lifeline, not once, not twice, but 3 times through these recovery funds, these rescue funds. But we know that there's not going to be a continued flow of rescue funds. And with the 3 apportionments, starting with CARES, followed by CRISA, and now with the ARP, it's looking at how do we make this work for us as we're laying out our plans for the future. And I know that you all have outlined a strategic plan. You have shared some of that with us, and I commit myself and my team to help with in any way that we can provide technical assistance or any type of guidance that you may need, so that we can make your outcome one that it's not only desirable that you're hoping for, but that you can actually achieve.
One of the issues that we find is the match issue. Julie, do you want to explain some of the problems that you've run into with that?
So being in a rural area with our 5311 funding and having to have a 50% match, and everybody suffered from this pandemic, and we were typically getting those match funds from the county or the city or another agency, and they have all been hit by the pandemic. So therefore, they don't necessarily have those match funds to give us for our 5311 FTA funds. So the saving grace has been the CARES funding and the CRISA funding, and then this new round of funding that's going to be coming in at 100%, because we haven't had to worry about going out and trying to figure out where we're going to get the matching funds for use of our regular 5311 funds. So that's just an issue that I think moving forward, because these funds will only go so far, these rescue funds will only go so far, and then at what point, because we know this is going to be a slow recovery. It's not going to happen overnight. People have to get comfortable again riding public transit. And there have been things that have been put in place now with telehealth and grocery deliveries and things that we used to take more people to that are probably not going to come back for some people because they found another way to do it. So then we have to look at what other people do we need to serve, but there's always going to be that match, at least for the foreseeable future, that we really appreciate somebody taking a look at and seeing what can be done to help all of us in public transit, especially the rural systems, because our match is so big.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That challenge is not just pertaining to Iowa. It applies to most of the rural areas. I know that both Kim and Matt are on this call. And Matt, I don't know if you wanted to share information regarding this. Did we lose Matt?
No, Matt, you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. We've been trying to think about, the next year or 18 months and what's on the horizon. I know you have all been contemplating that as well in terms of what your local revenue streams look like. And, the funds from the CARES Act and the CRISA funding are intended to be prioritized, right, to avoid furloughs, to make sure that you have those operating resources right now. And the rescue plan dollars really are there for the same purpose. I'm curious when you look at, and it varies from operator to operator, but it'd be interesting to hear, thoughts on how far you all think you can go with those resources, and then, what you think might be in place a year from now.
And I can talk for HERDA. One of the things that we were waiting for is to see how much additional money there will be in the rescue plan. And once that amount comes down, then we've got these 3 buckets of money. With the CARES money, we've already started spending most of that. But then what is that going to look like? And then we can make a plan for how far do we think that's going to put us out there. And we would be happy to share more of that information. And Carl, as the association, maybe that's something we just need to get more transit systems to take a look at so that we can share that information so that you would have the information you need to see how far out do we need to go.
Yeah, thank you.
The breakdown, I'm sorry, the breakdown on that will be coming down. But I do believe the numbers I have right now for Des Moines is 17 million and Davenport is 15. And then that's the large, and then the small urban, there's further breakdown. Matt, do you have the full total now? Do we have a total?
I don't have it in front of me. Kim might have it. Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. But we're hoping that as you add that, Julie and others, as you start doing the math with the prior 2, that it starts to look like something that can take you further. One of the things that I do not have in front of me, and I should have requested this, so I apologize, is to get a sense of how you are obligating the dollars that you're receiving. What is that cadence that you all have applied? Because one of the things that we are going to be doing is there'll be a series of oversight, given a lot of interest around transit getting almost $50 billion overnight of new funding. And how is that funding being spent? So as you are looking within Iowa and across the state for whether applications have been submitted, funds have been obligated, what the expenditure rate has been, that also helps not only you, but helps us see if there's some further considerations that we need to start to have conversations around.
Kristen, do you have any of that information from the DOT level?
I don't know about the reimbursement rates. I don't work on that. I do know that we've submitted our CRISA grant to FTA for the 5311 monies, but it has not yet been executed by Region 7. And that was as of last Thursday, I believe. So I'm not sure. So we wouldn't have drawn down any of those dollars yet, but CARES Act we've drawn down, I know.
Well, at least there's an application in, which is important.
Yep, we've done that much.
Yes, so that's a positive first step. And if it's at the region level, I don't think Kim would have that information. I know Makti, you were on the line, or you were.
I am on the line.
Yes. Can you add anything to the?
Now it's under review right now, and it's going through the review process, and then, we'll send it forward.
Okay, and the CARES Act funds have also been applied for?
That I don't have, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we're drawing it down already.
Okay, good. I think the important thing here is not to put anyone on stage, but it's really to say, as we're looking at the big picture on what the ask that you've asked us to consider is an important one. And we want to be a good partner. And but we also have to understand what the rest of the landscape looks like, so that we can figure out together what are some of these shortfalls or these gaps that you anticipate, and then think about it in a broader way, because it's, as I mentioned, it's not just you, it's many other rural areas that are encountering this type of challenge. Ed, you leaned in, so I know you want to say something.
One of the things that we're hopeful of when you do the infrastructure package, that's 100% funds also. Because our biggest problem is the match on some of these, if we've got facilities or whatever. I know Elizabeth in Des Moines, she has an application, or will have an application, and they have completed facility.
Ed, we can't hear you anymore.
Yeah. For some reason, it started to.
I was saying, Elizabeth, when we're talking about match, it's my hope that you actually do the infrastructure package money as 100% funds. Did that come through?
Yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth, because you have a project that's actually you're putting together now, aren't you?
Yeah, we applied for a new facility 2 years ago for the first phase. And as part of that grant application, we said we would apply again in 2 years, which would be this next round for funding to complete the facility. And so we will we'll be doing that here as soon as that's released. But one of the challenges is the cost of financing and realizing the match. The facility is a $68 million project. And so we're only asking for 60% of it to be funded federally, and that we're going to support the other 40%, but we'll have to bond to do the rest of the piece of that funding. And so, it's a big undertaking for a system of our size. And so one of the things that we've contemplated is, as we've looked at some of the TIFIA type pieces, it's just the project's not quite big enough, and we're not quite big enough to be able to support it. And so are there some opportunities for financing for, smaller amounts of money at a lower interest rate to help systems our size be able to complete the financial plan for a project of that magnitude?
I know that our Build America Bureau, that's where all of the financing decisions are made, both for TIFIA and RIF loans. And in your case, it would be TIFIA, or it could be something. But Matt, can you help me here? Because I don't know if there's a program that addresses small operators.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I'll connect you with our team that, works on the loans, and we'll sort of explore some options.
Yeah, we'd be really appreciative of it. Anything to not have to bond would be helpful, and
Absolutely.
we're good for the money. So just,
Okay.
And the federal rates are really amazing right now.
Yeah. Makti and I will follow up with you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. So I think
Looks like we're having a little technical glitch here.
Yeah, Nuria froze.
Yeah.
We'll just give it a second here. It might just I'm going to stop share. That might also help.
Sure, we'll wait for a moment, Carl. Thanks.
That works sometimes.
No.
All right, it does look like had some technical difficulties there. Everyone looks like Nuria had to fall off here. I will default. We're kind of up at our time, utilizing all our time anyway. To give a few more minutes just to wait, or I will defer to FTA on your guys' thoughts and Region 7.
Carl,
I'm back. I'm sorry.
Great.
I got kicked off.
There we go.
Everyone was frozen, and I couldn't figure out why I was the only one moving. So now I know. But I had asked him for an update. I don't know if she gave it.
I didn't hear you. Yeah. An update on ARP?
Yes, if you were able to find information with the details.
I was not able to find their total amount, but I did want to let them know that on Friday at 2:00 Eastern time, we will be having a webinar on ARP, just to talk about the law, what's available, and our plans. And we need your questions so we can have some good FAQs and put out some good guidance for you all. So look for the link this week. It has not gone out today, but it will be going out this week, so you can register. So please attend.
And the apportionment tables the apportionment tables are posted online now, so you can see the Iowa specific numbers.
Great.
Thank you, Matt, for that. Henrique, I was not sure if you wanted to offer any thoughts before we turn it back to our.
I guess the only thing I would say is to just echo your statements earlier about the importance now of having the resources, but importance now is going to be on the oversight of them and making sure that we're being stewards of those dollars, and that we can track how we've spent them, and that we can spend them in ways that's defensible. So we will be including and incorporating a review of these dollars into our traditional oversight programs, but we're also looking at other ways that we may expand that oversight to make sure that we are really on top of making sure that these funds are spent for the activities that they've been awarded for. And so you'll hear more from us on the oversight piece. And I think as we talked about all of the plans out there for capital and all of the competing needs as it relates to local resources and state resources, I think it just underscores the importance of making sure that you're not only looking at how you modernize your systems, but we're also looking at some point in terms of what the systems of the future are going to be. So as we talk about replacing buses, and we talk about admin capacity and those things, we want to make sure that at some point we're right sizing it. So just make sure that that's a part of the conversation as well. And that's all I had, Noria.
Thank you so much, Henrika. And I want to thank all of you again for reaching out to us. I like these type of conversations because it connects us virtually, brings us to your neck of the woods, and gives us a first front row seat opportunity to learn about what you're doing, what your challenges are. And thanks for highlighting areas of concern where you see us working closer in partnership. So we will follow up. Those of you who have brought up a couple of things, in particular on the loan, we will be connecting, and Makti will follow up on the application as well for the grants for the CRISA. I'm putting on my skates because I have to skate now to another part of the country for another meeting. But it was so good to see all of you, and really looking forward to that time when we can host you at our headquarters facility in a conference room. So thanks again for all you're doing. I hope that the dollars that are coming through ARP are to your liking, and that there's going to be some amazing things happening in the future as you continue moving forward with your strategies to bring the best transit system to the great state of Iowa.
Thank you. You've got a great
time.
We appreciate everything they do.
Yes, thank you. Have a great week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for attending. Appreciate it.